Last week, my wife and I were talking about my first grade teacher, Miss Elrod. Shout out to her. She's long gone now, but it came up. We had a conversation about her, and it made me start thinking about those 5 questions that I learned. I think it was first grade: who, what, when, where, why. And I years ago had taken those 5 questions, had written them down, and developed really 10 questions around each one to help me gain clarity when I'm thinking. And I've been sharing them this week. I've given you 30 questions already. We went 10 who questions on day 1, 10 what questions, 10 when questions, and now we're on to where today. And these are going to, I think these are going to help us think through this. I said, I've given you a little bit of warning here. If you're out jogging or on the treadmill, or you're even driving in traffic, you're going to probably want to spend some time at some point with this episode. I'm going to keep it short. I promise you, I'm going to go 10 minutes or less, trying to here. Anyway, cheer for me as I'm going. But you're going to want to write these questions down, because I think they can really help you as you think about your life as well. And the first question today is where are you? My question is, where am I? Where am I? I love this where are you question. This is the second oldest question. I've shared this before, but it's the second oldest question in the history of the world. This is the question that, if you're a Bible reader, you know this question all the way back, Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve have eaten the forbidden fruit, and they decide, hey, why don't we just hide from God? And which is pretty laughable when you think about it. But it's not going to work, because God comes to them and he asks the question, where are you? Where are you? Now, he hasn't lost them. We know that God has not lost his kids. I tell people all the time, Laura and I lost a couple of our kids through the years. She's like sending me back to the school. You were supposed to pick them up today, and I'd forget, to go get them. And then I jokingly say we have a couple of our kids we tried to lose, and they kept coming home. So we all understand, like, sometimes it's like hard to keep up with everybody. God has not lost Adam and Eve. He knows exactly where they are. And he asks that question, where are you? And I think it's such a powerful question for us as leaders, outside of work, inside of work, wherever you go, to ask yourself all the time, where am I? Where am I really? I mean, that might be the best way to ask the question, right? Just to add the really on the end. Because I think sometimes when people ask me how I'm doing, I can say, I'm fine. Everything's great. We're all good. When truthfully, it's not always as good as it might even look sometimes. And I just want to encourage you today to be really honest with yourself. Take what I call a makeup mirror look. If you know about the makeup mirror, right? There's 2 kinds of mirrors. There's the big mirror. If you go into a hotel room, that's where you brush your teeth, you stand in front of that mirror. But there's also a little bitty mirror over on the side in a really nice hotel. It's a makeup mirror. And if you've not looked into one, I always tell people, don't look into it. It's very scary because it's got 5x. 5 times the power of the big mirror. It's magnifies what's really going on. Well, I think when we ask this question, where am I? It is really good to magnify the answer, again, add that really on the end. What's really going on? How am I doing on the inside? Not how do I look on the outside? How are things on the inside? So where am I? It's just such a powerful question. And then maybe question number 2 that helps me think about my life is, where am I going? Where am I going? It's one thing to know where you are, but if you don't know where you're going, I think you're going to struggle to have vision and to make progress, all that stuff. And so where am I going? Here's another powerful where question today. We're going to totally shift here. Where's my most productive place? We asked the question, when is my most productive time, a couple of days ago? But today, where's my most productive place? And you may have an office or a creek bed or, a gym that you go to that the gym may not be your most productive time when it comes to fitness. But I know a guy who he goes to his gym, and then there's an office inside the gym where he's able to pull off. And every time I go, I'll see him. He's in there working, and he doesn't work at the gym. He spends some time in a remote place. I know other people, they work in a coffee shop. Where's your most productive place? You need to know that. And you need to find that time to be in that place as much as you can. Here's a where question. Where do I need to visit? Where do I need to visit? Now, you may not need to visit. Where do you want to visit? You can ask it that way, but maybe there's a place you need to visit. Maybe there's somebody who's who's a little bit ahead of you. They're thinking a little bit, maybe even about whatever it is you're thinking about. They've been thinking about it longer. They got more experience. They're older. I don't know what the situation is in your case, but I would encourage you to go spend some time with that person. You could probably learn from them. It might be about your fitness, or it might be about your finances, or it might be about your family relationships, or somebody maybe that's, maybe you're going into a season where you're going to have preschoolers, and you're leaving the baby stage, right? And go spend some time with some people that had some preschoolers, or maybe you're going into a time your kids are leaving elementary school or going into middle school. Who's raised some middle schoolers and done it halfway successfully? Go spend time with them, and I think you might learn something. But where do you want to visit as well? I mean, I told you the other day that Laura and I spent a few days over on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I jokingly said, I'm not sure you shouldn't want to go there because you can't get there. It's just like, it took forever to get over there. It's about 10 hours away, and we had to really plan to go over there. We drove over there, but we had such a great time on the way. It was a cool place to visit as well, but it wouldn't have happened had we not had this is where we want to go. This is where we didn't need to go there, but this is where we want to go. We want to spend some time there. And so I want to encourage you to identify those places. Here's a good question. Where do I need to send someone else? Maybe you don't need to go. You need to send somebody. And that may sound crazy, but is there somebody in your life that they need to be encouraged to go somewhere else? And maybe you need to even resource that trip to make it happen. Or maybe it's just a visit to, somewhere in the area, or you need to connect them with some other parent or whatever. Maybe some of the conversation we're having here. Where do I need to invest my time? Where do I need to invest my time? We talked about how we use our time and what's the highest, best use of our time a couple days ago. Where do you need to invest your time? And maybe it's in serving in your community. Maybe it's at your church. Maybe it's in your kids' school. Maybe there's some time that you need to invest in a relationship. I don't know. But when I think about where I need to invest my time, something comes to mind. And so I'll encourage you to give some thought to it. Where do I need to invest my resources? Where do I need to invest my resources? We have a place that we have been supporting lately, and I had to do some things to make sure that we were going to be able to do what we wanted to do just a few days ago. And so this question helped me to continue to think about where do we want to invest our resources. And so I would encourage you to give some thought to, you have resources. Where do you need to invest those? What is it that's going to add the most value and maybe the most long-term value? Now, here's a couple other questions at the end. These questions are good for me. I hope this will be good for you. Some of you are struggling right now because you've not taken time to identify those places that you need to avoid. So that's my question. Where do I need to avoid? Where do I need to avoid? If I go here, I'm going to do that. If I go there, I'm going to do this. Is there a place that you go, or if I get around that relationship, maybe that's involved in this question here, but where do I need to avoid? I think this is a powerful question, and it's amazing how many times when we struggle, it's because of the environment that we put ourselves into. So if you've got an area in your life where you're struggling right now, maybe you just need to change the environment. Where do I need to avoid? All right, I got two more. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to live? Now, hopefully you're living where you want to live, but if not, I want to give you permission to dream a little bit. Where do you want to live? Some of you are already thinking about where you want to live in the future, and that's great. But where do you want to live right now? That's the question. It's like, are you where you want to be? Where are you? But are you where you need to be? You don't have to stay where you are if you're not where you're supposed to be. So I want to encourage you to give some thought to where do you want to live. And then my last where question is it's a little bit related to that, but it's more long-term in our thinking. And the question is, where do I want to end up? Where do I want to end up? And I would encourage you to think about your future, think about you might even, there's a couple ways to do this. I heard Stephen Covey years ago. I went through some training that they were doing on that I think it's the 7 habits. And one of the things they talked about was thinking about your eulogy. You're at your funeral and all that. I'm changing the rules on that. I don't want to think about my eulogy today. I want to think about my 80th birthday party. And by the way, that'll get here quicker than you think it will. Who do you want to be there? What do you want them to be able to say? Your friends, your family, maybe even some coworkers, but your neighbors, people you hung out with, what would you want them to be able to say? And that question is going to help you really begin to have a vision toward where you want to end up. And then if you'll just begin to live, out that stuff that you want them to say, the only way they'll say it is if you live that way now. And so I'm going to encourage, if you want them to say you were really generous, then you're going to need to be generous. If you want them to say you served, you got to serve. If he was so gentle, you got to be gentle. It really will give us some clarity here when we start to think about where we want to end up. What do you want your legacy to be? Might be the way to ask that question. So the where question can be real powerful. Again, you have to start where you are, but you don't have to stay there. These questions might help you get to where you want to go. I hope you'll come back tomorrow, and that's where you'll end up tomorrow. We're going to do one more episode, and it's on why. I'm going to give you 10 more questions, round out the 50-question week. It's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow. I hope you'll come back for some why tomorrow. Remember, winning begins at home.